All right, your engine maintenance manual number 25C3, model 567, engine, 3rd edition, January 1957, piston connection rod assembly section 3. All right, piston section 3, piston connection rod assembly and connection rod bearings. A description: piston rod assembly of the cast iron alloys piston of the U, the 567, and the Z, with the production of the engine of the two-piece with a floating piston consisting of the integral body of the, and a piston carrier designated as a truant, shown in Figure 3.1, with a carrier support with a piston body with the internal position platform held in place for the internal snap ring with the body with the position body with the truss washer for the used in between the carrier platform and the piston platform design allow the free piston free body with the rotate with during the operation of these compression rings with the two double the hook oil with the control of the rings or you with the oil taken up with the oil with the ring passes through the drilled holes in the rings. The carrier used in the Truman piston assembly has the circular boss located essentially with the upper platform, which of the ply with the bore with the center of the piston platform and a U with the pilot with the position of the carrier bottom of the outside diameter. No piston pin burning bushings are used within the carrier with the strength of the piston and the pin in bearing area with the extent of the diameter with the carrier with the formed to the contour of the piston pin bearing area carrier is honed and polished from the bearing surface of the pin oscillates within the carrier with the piston pin and surface of the carrier pin with the bore originally bolted with the upper end of the connection rod. Internal parts of the piston lubricated with the cold end piston cooling oil directed through the drilled part of the passage of the piston carrier with the circulates of the valve of the piston crown with the use of the lubricated with the piston pin to drain thoroughly with the 2 5/8 of an inch and hole of the carrier at the right end of the angles. Some earlier 567 C pilot engine the equipped with the conventional floating with the piston with the yearly designated with the true union pinion with the carrier with the bushing within the connection rod with the pin boring bushing. Conventional floating pins have been rimmed out and plotted with the upper platform thrust washers. Small diameter thickness compared with the true union thrust washer the true union type with the conventional floating the piston with the connection rod assembly can be used together in 567 series engines. Over the part of the two assembly with the interchangeable description made with the conventional floating with the piston with the connection rod assembly contained in section 3 of the 252E engine manual. Pistons are provided with the Parco lubricated treatment with the aid skirt with the lubrication of the process etched out with the surface of the dark density porosity and which gives a better oil retention information from the fuel relube treatment is contained with the maintenance instruction of 1758. Your piston pin is the LI piston pin mounted directly with a circular contour over the top of the connection rod 2 7/8 of an inch bolts with the breech provided with a non-removable spacer with the pass through the upper end of the rod. Each rod screw into the piston pin with a torque value of 450 pounds of torque. You tighten these bolts is after with which they are lock wire because of the piston pin is bolted with the connection rod with its force and they oscillate with each of the bore tops over the piston, which if the bearing area provide with the groove of the A with the distribution lubricating oil silver bearing material of 15 hundredths of an inch thick with the provide all of the over pin surface with the in addition with the A of the run in pin surface with the given in the thin flash coat of the pure lead, and then it shows the figure 3.1 show floating piston assembly, show the piston crown, piston rings, compression thrust washer, piston carrier pin, piston skirting, carrier cylinder number, the section AA, B, and B. Or your connection rods are interlocking with the blade with the fork with the construction of the blade rod, move them back and forth with the back of the upper crank pin bearing with its help with the blade for the contour bore in fork rods shown in figure 5.3.2 and 3.3. Outside, one side of the blade run with the bearing surface with the long, with the other end known as the long toe with the blade runs with its inside with the right bank of the engine with the long torque with the center of the engine. Fork rods are installed with the left of the bank engine seriations on the bottom of the side of the rod. Each match with a similar seriation with the bearing basket. Bearing basket consists of the two halves of the bolts together at the bottom with the 3 bolts having the self-locking nut of the fork rod basket with it fastened together with the seriation mean with the dowel pin with the crap screw. Fork rods baskets add interchangeable sensitively aligned with the rod board as an assemble. Both of the fork rods baskets are stamped with and indicated with the assembly serial number. The purpose of the matching identification. The top of each of the rod remains sheen with a counter pin, counter with a piston pin. With the piston pins are held with a connection with the 2 scrap screws provided with non-removable spacers. Connection rod bearing with the connection rod bearing consists of the upper lower shell with the figure 3, 2, and they are semi-circular steel having lower layer of bronze covered with the lead tin with a coating with the inside diameter with the upper bearing with a bearing with a surface of the center outer diameter with existing with a layer of bronze without the lead of tin overlay with a provided with the bearing of the surface with a slipper over the blade connection rod. Alright, this shows your piston rod connection compression spring out oil connection ring with a piston thrust washer piston pin carrier with a carrier snap ring retaining bearing type with the piston pin with the over the rod piston pin bolt with the fork rod with the blade rod connection rod, upper rod bearing and lower bearing, and fork rod basket, bolted type. Then it shows the piston rod, connection rod, cross section, compression rings, pistons, piston bearing carrier, thrust washer, piston pin, snap ring, bolt assembly, oil rings, connection rod, saddle type. Alright, dowels in the fork rod of the bearing basket with the hole of the shell with the proper with the position, 2 dowel with the fork rod with the hole of the upper shell with the lower shell with the located with the dowel with the basket with no adjusting of the connection rod bearing with the provide when the bearings of clearance exceed the limits of the given in the specification for plate for the bearings after the bearing shell with the, or once for the used in the crank pan, but they must not be used in any other crank pan with the lubricating of the oil supplied in the crank bearing over the adjacent with the maintain with the bearing with the fab through the drilled passage of the crankshaft with the oil groove with the center lower with the bearing supply with the drilled passage with the ends of the upper bearing with the blade rod with the lube bearing surface with the oil distributed over the surface of the fish back and the oil groove down with the bearing of the shirt having the grooves over the writing and along with its length. Maintenance piston and connection rod inspection. When installed with the piston with the connection rods can be inspected with the install of the engine shut down with the airbox for the oil pan inspection covered to remove the precautions should be taken with the perceived to prevent the engine from being started with the open all cylinder test valve with the facility the rotation with the crankshaft with the turning jacket all airbox inspection rotated with the crankshaft with the piston with the cylinder head inspected at the top of the bottom center. Inspect the cylinders with the wall of the top of the piston. Check with the scoring with the cylinder walls with the inspection of the water leak with the rotate the crankshaft with the ABD. Inspect through the linear port with the observe the blow with the blow by indicate with the vertical down stroke with the cowl with the stuck with the broken rings. Do not use a bar piece of the wood to see if the rings are free with the ring good condition will bright with the free with the groove with the Ferrox the groove is visible. Ring of the Ferrox gone within any of the part vertical brown blowout by streaks shall be replaced with the inspect the piston screw with the scoring with the scuff of the inside back of the airbox form material with the springs the ends of the water indicating leak with the oil pan inspection. Inspect the back over the upper connection rod with the cutting of the signs with the overheating with the inspection of the wear bearing surface with the piston rod with the field along with the checking with the evidence of the roughness of the scuff of the piston with the top center with the inner inspection lower inner walls scoring with the inspection oil pan form material to check with the thrust washer measures the clearance of the between the piston and snap with the excess of the clearance with the indicator of the warm parts of these specification limit 2 pulling piston rod assembly preliminary start steps over the remove the cylinder test valve with assembly remove the piston cooling oil pipe with remove the cylinder head with the outline in section 2 apply with the piston pulling eye bolt within tapped hole piston crown fork rod remove the fork rod basket bolt with the cap screw with the remove the basket halves and lower bearing shell. Pull the piston rod assembly with the head holding the rod as clear crankshaft with the prevent with the stringing of the piston and skirt with the liner with the apply with the fork rod boot and the complete removal of the piston assembly blade removal. Blade rod removal this is opposite with the fork rod with the piston or not removed then it's essential with the assembly with the held out of the way using the holding tool. This is done by the remove of the basket with lowering the bearing and placing the fork rod into the position over the top center with the holding tool is applied with the outboard over the fork tube with the 2 baskets cap screws. Rotate the crankshaft, normal direction, hold of the tools, will reset with the oil pan proper to upper with the bearing with the connection rotation with the piston blade with the removal of the base of the piston with the blade rod assemble the carefully remove the upper with the bearing shuffle prevent the rod from striking the piston with the screen liner, skirt or liner, apply the boot and complete the removal of the blade rod assembly, disassembly of the plate rod, preliminary steps, remove of the cylinder, assess assembly, place the piston and with the rod assembly, worn tab of the workbench with the remove of the snap of the ring and snap ring, use the snap ring pliers. Care should be taken with the holding the piston assembly with the void of the knocking and the scrape of the piston, scrape of the blade for the rod covers with the holding fixture of the fixture is unavailable. The vice for the makes maybe use the copper protected jaw with the place of the pin cover the vice so the pin bolt must be removed with exerted force. Moved with exerted force in the vertical plane. 4. Cleaning the piston. Clean the pistons, rod, and assembly file with the procedure for the given the maintenance of section 1706. Show for the piston snapping ring removal pliers and the maintenance instruction 1754. Cover over the connection rod, MagnaFlux inspection, check fork rod with the threading, fastening the basket, secured with the placing of the 175 foot-pound with the torque of the basket, screw with the torque value of the low basket valve with the 75 pounds, foot-pounds, measure for the headboard at points at 60 degrees, part with is indicated in figure 5.35. The average of these dimensions may not exceed 7.622. All right, 7.626 inches, but if the board is beyond the dimension, rod basket should be reworked and the information connection rod work with the factory rebuild, serve with the bolts and number to 305. Fork rod rework will be required in the following conditions. Average 360 dimension measures across the fork rod and basket bore exceeding 7.26 inches. Nicks, bores, and fretting of the fork basket serrations. Alright, 5 connection rods. A fork rod. After all the parts of the cleaning tab with the screw, with the hole, with the fork, with the business knee, with the main be cleaned, with the 5/8 of an inch tab, with the basket, with the cap screw, with it should be inspected. Anytime with the remove of the shape should be replaced. Apparent burning, apparent and bent, nicked, and having worn threads of the cannot be run into the rod within the finger. The fork rod serrations should be checked with the nicks and the burrs for the cleanliness, clean, tighten with the upper bearing valve, steps, valve available in the event of dowels are required in both visible and MagnaFlux serration. Sorry, I didn't see the page below it, but let's go. The maintenance instruction: damage 3 cap screws, loose dowels, damaged distorted basket, twisting, seating 600ths of an inch, the length of the saddle, out of parallel excess of 300ths of an inch, limited across the saddle length of the rod between the bore less of the minimum of 22.990 inches. Alright, your fork corner bearing exceed 400 inches maximum depth of the fork rod assembly of scrap, and more and more of the following conditions exist. Fatigue cracks of the basket, serrations, and MagnaFlux of the heat, the discolorization basket of the fork of the rod bent of the damage repair. The length of the between the bore center is 22.979 inches of the blade rod. Alright, the blade rod is checked on the 7.629 inches diameter band drill to observe the slip surface of the open clove of the end of the check of the rod length with the twist of the bore parallel flowing of the blade, surface of the bright, sunshiny, smooth with the rod should be scrapped, and the surface of the show of the heat with the discolorization during the flame hardening process of the blue black with the result with the show of the shoe of the blade rod. Discolorization normal has been caused with the poor operation slip surface, however there has been no discolorization. Blade rod rework will be required with the following conditions: scarred, pitted, and deeply rusted edges, slippery, surface of each end of the slippery closed beyond 7,000ths of an inch, end of the slipper opening beyond 3,000 of an inch. Below 333, below. Alright, never mind. Should succeed with this 6,000 of an inch with saddle length, open out of parallel, 3 foot 1 along saddle length between the bore center with a minimum allowable length with a 22.990 inch with the blade rod should be scrapped, and more and more of the following conditions exist. Rejection of the MagnaFlux indication for the maintenance instruction 1754 with the discolorization slip of the turf below 0.335 inch of the minimum flange length, thickness of the slipper shoulders, twist out of parallel, the damage beyond the repair, length between the bore center with a 22.979 inch of the referred to the factory rebuild, surface bulletin number 305 with the return and rework of the connection rod, check for the rod length. Twist for the bore parallel with the connection rod, check with the fixture for the figure 3, check for the construction for the checking with the construction with the fixture over the fixture with the obtained with the blueprint M248 with the obtained with the surface of the department of the production installation section blueprint M248. Give the parts of the detail construction fixture U with the bolted piston rods of the rods having the piston pin eye with the fixtures U with the check for the bolts over the rods with the 1-inch spacer block with the U with an under indicator assembly block. And figure 14136 the indicator gauge block with the 147 space 1 inch of the spacer block applied with the UV indicator when using fixtures outline and blueprint M248 check the saddle with the end of the connection rod with the place 1.4136 of an inch indicator gauge block with a fixture permanent gauge with the block with the indicator button on the 1.4136 inch block. And then shows another piston of the piston rods. Alright, as the indicator 0 with the plate for the rod fixture with the place indication over the button, bottom of the contour of the body, check with the end of the top of the edge of the contour, check for the screw with the body, bringing the rod with the vertical position with the tightening screw, check for the opening end of the slip surface of the body, trying with the 3,000 with the feel engaged for the one end of the each toe end. Between the slippery surface of the arbor with the place of the rod open with the end of the slippery surface of the maybe you with the provide with 3,000 inch feeler gauge cannot be be inserted with more than 2 inches of the pinball from the end of the top of the slippery with the mount with a 692 of an inch for the arbor with the clove of the slipping strip for the evidence for the end of the having no clearance, the slipping strip for the opening with the rods may be used with having the close end of the slip strip with the provide with a clearance no greater than 7/1000 of an inch over the tame with a measure for the place between the end of the slipper of 7.629 inch of the arbor. After adjusting indicator plate for the rod vertical position and instead of the indicator with the bottom of the top of the inside of the edge of the sail, run indicator along with the length of the sail. Indicator deflection should rod twist. The twist should not exceed 7/1000 of an inch. Place indicator at the bottom saddle with no indicator reading on the check along with the length of the saddle bottom. Circumventing of the bolt hole of the check out of the parallel indicator must not show more than 3/1000 of an inch deflection along with the length of the saddle. Replace the indicator with 1.4136 of an inch gauge block with the check with an indicator dial with 0 inches setting with a slide the indicator bottom off of the bottom of the saddle. Note the deflection reading not exceeding 100 of an inch to allow for the reuse of the rod. Give the generated rebore the center line dimension of the 2.22990 of an inch and 0.21 indicator reading show the rod's center line dimension at 22,979, which craft the rod. Part 7. Check with the rod bearing. With the connection with the rod bearing should be checked with the out of round with whenever the position of the assembly removed from the edge of the makes it check with the ply with applying with the bearings of the fork rod with the basket if they have been used with the tightening of the basket cap screws at 175 pounds of the torque with the bench with the cross of the bearing born like 60 degrees apart with the cylinder with the metal produced for the checking of the fork rod basket bore figure 3.5 of the average of these readings if they may not be less than necessary to ensure the clearance of the cracking pin journal with the bearing at least 6/1000 of an inch and the maximum with a 15,000 of an inch and the maximum out of round of 61 hundredths of it, and must not be exceeded with the maximum permissible tap basket with the soft nail in order to maintain the out of round limit after operation. Rod bearings may be given an induction indication bearing tight across the pin slight split line with the loose with the crack pin. However, the rod bearings for use should be remounted with the fork rod. Check with a note with after the bearings have been once used, but they should not be used on any other journal. Check upper bearing step of the thickness is shown in figure 3.7. This will indicate the blade rod. The strip of the wear with the step of the thickness should not be less than 27,000 of an inch. Bearing shells show indication of the scoring to be replaced. Piston pin carrying a limited inspection, including piston pins of trimming the design pit as an assembly rod assemblies originally, but they have 13 oil groove with a helical groove with a currently designed piston pins have 6 oil grooves and no helical groove. Either the pin can be used, providing that either there are within recommendations. Piston pin should be retained original carrier along with the possible the carrier pin with the platform dimension limiting with a factor of the determination reusability with the carrier 100 of an inch more bore personal original pin that's carried used together the same level to position. See containing a limited example of page 317. Note 3/8 of inch hole with the end of the piston pins match with the piston cooling oil inlet hole of the carrier with the convention meat for the keeping of the pin with the carrying with the same position recommended with the piston pin with the carrier clean with the higher or the flash point petroleum solvent such as the Stoddard solvent at 105 degrees flash point equal or equal. These parts should never be washed with alkaline or caustic water solutions. Alright, no abrasive material of any kind should be used with the carrier pin or bore with the piston pin with the tuning bore with the must be protected against the rust at all times. The wheel groove with the piston pin should be clean with the U with the wooden stick with the point with the fitted groove. Piston pin minimum diameter with a 3.678 with the inch of the piston pin should be replaced with the condition as well. Particular attention should be given the bearing groove with the sharp edge of the groove that must be blended with the hinge that should be sneered silver should not be reused. Corrosion does not appear with the pin bearing surfaces unless they have been considerable loss of the surface of the area. With the example of the 7/8 of an inch 14 pin bolt threads for condition clean with the retapping of the thread showed the damage of the replacing of the pin, the condemning limits of the long limit of the union design pinion carrier as the foul of the measurement of the carrier boring measuring the distance of the top carrier bore to the bottom plate face on each side. Carrier top pilot diameter minimum 3.556. Carrier bottom pilot diameter 7.479. Carrier height platform to bottom minimum 5.99. Top of the pinion to the platform reusing the same pin 0.690 inch. When interchanging the pins and using new pins 7/10 of an inch. Top pinion bore not parallel to the plat surface 3,000 of an inch. On one side 69 691 thousandths of an inch. Opposite side 693 thousandths of an inch. Pin bore platform output 21 10,000ths of an inch. In this case, the area with a 5.997 indicate with the no wear on the platform, so with no creation made with 6.691 or 693 dimension. The difference between the pin bore and the platform measurement is 2,000 of an inch, less with a maximum of 3,000 of an inch allowed with the 6.691 measurements above the minimum of 6.9. This is between the top of the pin bore platform can be reached and used the same reuse. Example, when using a new pin carrier height of 5.994 inch, top pin platform one side 6.6981 foot, and opposite side 6.698 inches. The top of the bore platforms 0.000 inches. Alright, in this case, the carrier with a 5.95 inches indicated with a 3,000 inch wear of the platform. For 3,000 inch, subtract with the 7/10 of an inch from the resulting in 6.697 thousandths of an inch. The no outlet partial condition 6.98, measuring the 0.001 above the limit to compensate with the carrier pin bore when using new pin. For carrier Magnaflux instruction maintenance inspection 1754, these limits assume nowhere on a clear platform. The height of the new indicate for the platform or the amount of the wear can be subtracted 6.90 from 7 dimensions accordingly. For other piston carrier dimensions, limited specifications are at the end of the section. 9. Remove the installing piston rings expander. When removing the installing rings, the tool prevents twisting, expanding, which is sort of the ring, and new rings should be used at each piston ring. Ensure with a quick setting and avoid the difficulties caused by the damaged rings. Using rings only disturbed may not sit in. New rings are applied. Engines should be worked and hard to aid ring seating. 10. Piston inspection. Limits are listed on specification end section. Removing the piston pins, and then it goes over figures 3/9 of the piston, of the clearance of the piston, with the final dimensionally structurally satisfactory reeve. Also have the bearing damage cleaned over the heat dam area with a clean over the undercrown with the deposit. For the undercrown deposit for the cleaning should be the accomplished even the sand grit blasting cleaning in conjunction with liquid cleaning maintenance 2174 with the other recommended with the procedure detail of the construction with a fixture with the grid blasting pistons. A check for piston crack with the Magnaflux section maintenance with instruction 754. Piston measure for the 211 below the compression ring groove, below the oil ring groove, and then take 2 readings each locating at a 90 to each other, 90 degrees to each other. Measure for the thrust washer thickness clearance over the carrier with the retaining snap ring and the piston carrier. Check with the ring groove wear stripment, and then it goes over your things, and we'll come back. Alright, the largest block that will enter the groove of the wear step with a subtract with a smaller dimension with the largest one with the enter of the wear the step to determine the step wear greater than 6,000 of an inch found in the lower face for the top compression ring groove. The groove may be recut to remove the wear step with the provided with the finishing does not exceed 2,600 of an inch finish over the eve of the standard snap ring groove with a warm balloon beyond the 2600 of an inch. Possible machining of the ring over the groove with a 1/32 of an inch overside of the ring, the dimension figure 312. Check with the wear the step of the groove with the lower with the C the figure 310 with the 2 the ring of the brake with the usually result with excessive wear with the step of the maximum wear the set in number 1 compression ring at 6,000, 2 and 3 compression ring set oil rings at 5,000 of an inch. Wear step of the gauge for the standard and oversize are available to make sure the measurement. Each gauge consists of much more separate indicators precise than 1,000th of an inch, as indicators of 25/11 of a foot through 260,000 of an inch. Groove is similar to but has 1/32 of an inch overside indicate with the overside with groove with the measure of the wear step of the first necessary to determine the original ring groove width of the must be may vary from 251 to 252 thousandths of an inch and travel to the insert of the gauge block with the ring with the determine which 1 inch with the full depth will show the original width of the dimension of the particular gauge block with the inserts. When performing either the proceeding of the operations, carry taking keep the ring groove with the face of the parallel to each other at the right with the angle of the center line with the piston. Surface finishes must be smooth and avoid excessive wear. Piston ring oversize available. The detail parts catalog return piston recondition consult with the surface Consult factory rebuild surface bullet number 308. 11. Assembly piston rod. Assembly connection rod piston carrier with some examples. Examine all surfaces smooth with the cleanliness oil bore pin and carrier with the pin surface from before placing the pin in the carrier. No installing the trunnion pin 3/8 inch hole on the pin and match for the piston cooling inlet over the hole of the carrier inlet. Insert the piston pin into the carrier with the mounting pin to the rod. Place assembly and holding. Torque bolts if the fixture is not available to place the rod and pin clip with the vice. Torque the vertical plane with the torque of the value of the pin bolts with 450 foot-pound with the torque salve of the rod with the pin bolt with 300 foot-pound with the torque. Use for the connection extension and one end of the extension within the plug socket that fits the bolt head with a 3/4 inch torque wrench. Drive with it inserted at the other end of the torque bolts at 450 foot-pounds and torque reading at 300 pound with the required with extension with one lock wire bolting. After assembly, the lock wire is twisted in the bolt head with the bolt not wire passes over the rod. Use the lock wire, which is approximately 0.07211 in diameter pin bolts. Now have 3 lock wires in the facility. Assembling the rod carrier with the piston cooling oil hail carrier must be on the same side of the dowel with the seriation with the fork rod with the opposite with the long toe with the blade rod with it will assume the proper position of the hole and when assembly is installed on the engine. Oil strip with the place thruster and washer piston platform apply with the rod and assembly and install the piston snap ring rotate carrier to the thickness and snap ring piston carrier clearance. Alright, 12. Installing piston and rod. Before installing the piston rod, the liner should be served with the outline. Section 4, piston rod compressor with a guide with the standard size in place with the cylinder line with the oil cylinder wall, ring compressor piston place, crank pin on the bottom center. Apply connection rod, but then lower the assembly into the liner using the eyelet bolts, piston crown with the piston cooling of the oil hole in position, outboard side, engine same side, short blade rod, dowel, and seriation fork rod. Alright, C. Suspend the piston rod and with the blade for the connection rod bearing for the application oil inside, outside bearing shovel. The install of the upper of the bearing in the position with the crank pin with the lower blade rod is to rest above the bearing with the remove of the blade bolt from the piston. Apply with the fork rod position. Apply with the boot from the fork rod lower end of the bearing and the check with the fork rod dowels the end of the bearing dowel holes without binding. Remove the piston eye bolt. Apply lower bearing dowel basket half shaft of the basket half shaft of the fork rod with the retightening of the fork of the rod cap screw with the position with the mash the seriation holding the bearing in the place. Apply the other basket half of the fork rod with the tightening of the rod cap screw mesh of the seriations. Applied with the 1/2 inch lower basket bolt self and the jock locking nuts. Torque value of these 75 foot-pounds. Alright, G. Complete with the basket fork with cap screw with application tightened to 190 to 200 foot-pounds. The torque applied with the lock wire. Retighten assembly according with the schedule of the maintenance program. Install the cylinder head as outlined in section 2. Install piston cooling oil pipe. Check adjustment. Use the piston cooling pipe gauge. Insert the small end with the P-pipe. B-pipe 2 crankshaft. Turn crankshaft slowly with the bring of the piston with the lower position. At the same time, rotate with the gauge with the hand to make sure it does not bind in the hole. It gauge of the indicates mass alignment. The replay for the pipe assembly. Do not use the gauge and align pipe with the piston cooling pipe. P-pipes then should be checked with the before application cleaning when cleaning the tool. Alright, 13. Piston and cylinder head clearance. The piston for the cylinder head clearance go with the greater extent of the efficiency of the engine should be maintained with the specified limit for the best operation. In addition, with the regular inspection of air made with the piston for the head with the clearance for the use of the made indicating the wear of the parts, piston connection rod assembly record with the clearance, chartered clearance for the reading for the prevention of the serious trouble with the excessive wear of the part of the condition and indicate with the comparing of the excessive piston head clearance. The engine record of the furnished inside of the piston with the head with the clearance reading with the time of the manufacturer study of the readings of the list with the edge of the clearance for the track for the begins with the subsequent readings that are taken to determine the condition of the engine the assembly recording of the original each of the successive reading with the proper plate for the chart is the finite condition of the parts will be shown reading with the piston with the head with the clearance also be started with the reinstall of the rod assembly taken the clearance for the newly installed with the assemble. If the recommended the correction lead reading with the taken on all clearance cylinders intervals specified with the scheduled maintenance program. More frequent inspection should be made in assembly which show the excessive dangerous rates and increase of the clearance The following method is recommended with the obtainment of the piston with the head of the clearance of the crankshaft, the plate for the piston, and check level the bottom, dead center. Place 1/8 of an inch softly with a solid wire shape to contour the piston ground with the end of the wire over the 8 1/4 of an inch for the part of the top of the piston with the linear ports. Position lead wire directly above the piston pin parallel to the engine crankshaft of the engine is then barred over one revolution. Remove the bolt of the ends measure with the micrometer of the reading with the average of the two measure taken with the difference between the two ends of the wire with the 5,000th of an inch clearance should be rechecked with the wire may be rotated. It may have been rotated piston with the right angle with the piston pins. Or the time necessary for the take with the reading of the engine and lesson with the considerable saving the wire with the use of the wire holder, wire lifts, and the equipment lifts observing the location various piston crankshaft with the rotated and when enabling all the readings of the take with the two revolutions of the crank, limit the piston head clearance of the new engine with a 0.026 of an inch minimum of 0.68 maximum reading for the average engine about 400 to 55,000 of an inch, condemning limit the piston head clearance with the 300 of an inch for the original piston head clearance. The limited apply with the cylinder assembly. This apply with the field with the head lead over the outline will gain 300 of an inch reach over the part of the assembly should be removed and checked with replacing the worn parts. However, this should be suddenly increased with the leading of the lead reading should be investigated, examining the limited various individual parts assembly governing when the respective replacement limits are found under the specification of this section. In conjunction with the piston of the rod piston, the head clearance of the spring ring clearance should be checked if the found with the piston head clearance is within 300 of the inch limit. The snap ring clearance is sufficiently near the condemning limit of the piston rod assembly should be removed and piston thrust washer be checked. Seizure of the specifications of the rod and piston clearances, and then it goes into section 5: crankshaft, main bearings, harmonic balancer, accessory driver gear, and crankshaft gear. Testing.